Hi, you know what time it is. Get into it, yes! We're back, lovelies. We are back on my favorite day of the week. Hi. Welcome back. Let's Story Time with Chris. As I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your downtime, nap time, max, relax, and chillaxing time, in between time, mean time, skiing time, study time, break time, CP time, any time that you want to hear a highly animated voice bring you wonderful stories of magic, fantasy, science fiction, adventure, and many, many more in between. Now, you did not come to hear me blather. You came to hear a story, and I owe you all not one, but 2 chapters today. So, let's go ahead and continue our journey with Prince Jen, who is under the heavy tutelage of the Kangu. And it is a mean teacher, let's just say that. Wait, did I? Oh, okay. Making sure I didn't skip a page. Hold on. Alrighty, let's get into it. And no, I don't own the music you are listening to in the background. So sit back, relax, make yourself comfortable. Let's get into it. Chapter 26. Stern Teacher. Marvelous Dreams. Reflections in a Puddle. It snowed that night. By morning, black branches turned sparkling white. Bare hillsides were dazzlingly blanketed. I know how to say dazzle, but it was dazzlingly. I'm tripping over my words, and I do apologize. Dazzlingly. That is a very hard word to say super fast, and I talk very fast, so I apologize. Dazzled, blanketed, snow collected in dry, rocky valleys that now look like so many gleaming lakes. The sky cleared to rich blue, dabbed here and there with pink. An orange sun floated low on the horizon, a landscape worthy of the Pater Chinchol. The prisoner of the Kangu had spent the night crouched in a bush. He had not slept well. He had not, in fact, slept at all, except for the occasional moment when his head dropped and his chin rested on the wooden collar. The skin of his neck, when the collar grip had been torn in the course of his struggles. The blood had clotted or frozen. The collar fretted away the scabby crust, biting into exposed flesh. The prisoner of the Kangu ignored this discomfort. The animal panic of the day before had gone into its burrow, having worn itself out. The prisoner of the Kangu was reasonably calm. He had much to do. He crawled out. He could not stand upright. His spine and his knees seemed to have bent and frozen stiff. He limped from the woodlands and crossed snowy fields, trying to kick away the cramps in his legs. He bore northward away from Chaisang. Later in the morning, he struck what he was looking for. A fairly good road that would lead him in the general direction of Nangpe. He had given him the prospect of reaching Tianquo. Not entirely given it up, it hung somewhere in the shadows of his mind. It simply no longer had any great importance. He concentrated on finding a flute girl and meantime getting free of the Kangu. Country folk were on the road. Some trudged beside ox carts or pushed barrows. They were on their way to market in Chaisang or some neighboring village. The bright morning had put them in good spirits. Children frolicked beside their elders, shouting and tossing snowballs. The sudden appearance of the prisoner caused uneasiness. The strangling procession of carts and barrows veered aside, giving him wide berth. Several of the folk stared curiously. Most kept their eyes fixed straight ahead. The prisoner of the Kangu had given further thought to his condition. He accepted one fact. He had no means of breaking himself from the collar. He must find means. The prisoner observed the passers-by. He signaled out a bluff, hard-looking fellow who laughed and joked with his companions. The prisoner of the Kangu approached him, making friendly gestures. The banter stopped. The man's friends, silent, glanced at each other and edged away. The prisoner asked for something to pry open the Kangu. "I'd do anything like that," the man retorted. "I'll end up with one of those on my own neck. I'm sorry for you, but that's as far as it goes. Be on your way." The prisoner wondered if he could identify himself. He decided it would be useless. Instead, he repeated his request for tools. "None here," the man said. "Be off, I told you." "You have an axe." The prisoner pointed at a heap of oddments in the cart. "There is no axe." "I see one. Give it here." "There is no axe." The man turned away. The prisoner followed, incessant. The man warned him to keep his distance. The prisoner pushed past him and tried to lay hands on the implement. Alarmed, the man cursed and shoved him aside. The prisoner was stubborn. He swung toward the cart, swinging the edge of his collar against the man, who was now frightened. He stepped ahead of the prisoner and seized an ox goad. He brandished the iron-tipped pole. "Enough of that! Get away!" The prisoner would not be denied. He started once more for the cart. The man struck him with the ox goad. The prisoner reeled back, regained his balance, and tried to snatch the pole. The man understood that he was dealing with a dangerous criminal. He brought the ox goad down on the prisoner's head. The prisoner fell. The man pondered whether to strike again. He judged it unnecessary. He set off with his cart as quickly as the ox could go. The prisoner had been thoroughly stunned. By the time he got his wits back, the country folk were too far down the road to be overtaken. He started north again. He did not feel kindly disposed toward those folk. He halted. By the roadside, someone had set a pile of broken victuals. The prisoner flung himself on the bits of food. He could not put them into his mouth. On all fours, he devoured them where they lay. At this point, the prisoner had worn the kangoo less than 2 days. It snowed often that winter. Bad weather forced the prisoner to go at a snail's pace. Sometimes he lost his bearings amid the whirlwind of white flakes. Once in the weeks that followed, he went in a large circle, ending where he had began. The kangoo did not speak to him again. It was, nevertheless, an excellent teacher, stern and demanding, but always fair. As long as the prisoner did what the kangoo required, they got on well enough. The kangoo taught him many useful things. How to lap water like an animal, how to sleep sitting up, how to wake half bent. The prisoner found a staff to help him do so. The kangoo also taught him to avoid towns and villages when possible, to enter them only if absolutely necessary. The prisoner was not welcome there. His presence made the inhabitants uncomfortable, and they sometimes drove him off with sticks. So the kangoo taught him to shelter in peasants' outbuildings and to be quiet about it and not approach the dwellings. With the same instinct that told them a fox or wolf roamed their fields, the farm folk knew he was there. Some chased him away, but most ignored his presence. As often as not, they set out food for him. The kangoo taught him to crouch over it and gulped it down before some stray creature snatched it from him. The kangoo awarded him for learning such lessons and granted him marvelous dreams. Asleep, the prisoner was deliriously happy, his dreams so bright, so real that it was often confused when he woke. He could not be certain whether he was a prisoner dreaming of happiness or a happy man dreaming he was a prisoner. Someone had once told him something like that. He could not remember who or when. The kangoo rewarded him as well by allowing him to lose track of time. The prisoner at first counted the days. So many accumulated that they became as heavy as the wooden collar. The kangoo permitted him to forget such details. It was either dark or light, snowing or not snowing. He had eaten or had not. This relieved him of painfully calculating how long he had been on the roads. One day he grew vaguely aware of a greenish cast to the landscape, a green thickening among trees and hedges, rain instead of snow, mud instead of frozen turf. This pleased him. The sun had grown notably warmer by the time he reached Nangpe. He had been ill and feverish, but his spirits lifted and he felt a joyful excitement until now confined to his dreams. He made his way cautiously into the town, to the thieves' and beggars' quarter, which the kangoo taught him to sniff out unerringly. He singled out a possible source of information. A street urchin, a ragged boy with a shrewd look on his narrow face. The prisoner beckoned. The boy swaggered over, grinning, studying the collar around the prisoner's neck as if he himself expected to wear one some day and wished a close look at what lay in store. The prisoner inquired if he knew of a certain flute girl performer at the theater. "Who doesn't?" The boy put his hands on his hips. "Lady Shadow behind a screen." The prisoner did not recognize that name. From the boy's added description, he knew who it must be. He asked how to send her a message. "You and 100 others," the boy chuckled. "Can't be done." The prisoner replied that it must be done. "Can't," the urchin repeated. "One good reason. She's gone." "That's right. In a great carriage. We lined the streets to wave. We were sorry to see her go." "Where?" "No idea. North, south, east, west. It would have to be one of them, wouldn't it?" "Here now, old uncle," the boy added, rapping sharply on the front of the kangoo. "Don't go to sleep." The prisoner had not gone to sleep. He merely shut his eyes and let his head drop forward. He could barely absorb what the urchin told him. The boy waited a few moments. The prisoner did not move. The boy wondered if he had died. He shrugged and went off whistling down the street. The prisoner, dimly understood he would have to think what next to do. To begin, he was to leave Nong Pe. He hoped some thoughts would come to him by the time he reached the outskirts. None did. He sat down by the roadside. A strange new creature had roused inside his head. He glimpsed it lurking in the shadows. Children played nearby, splashing in the puddles. They sidled up to the prisoner. He wished to tell them that their parents would be distressed and angry to see them loitering around him, but his tongue had grown thick and unmanageable, and he could not shape his words. He gestured them away. The children were not afraid. They observed him with interest. One cheerfully asked what crime he had committed. A girl held up a rice cake she had been munching. Did he want it? She stepped closer and put the cake into his mouth, grinning proudly as if she had dared something highly dangerous. Since the prisoner only sat motionless and showed no sign of doing anything exciting, the children grew bored and drifted away. The prisoner actually was very busy with the new animal. It was not panic, not love, fear, anger, hatred, or anything he had known. It had sharp claws and sharp teeth. The prisoner had developed a raging thirst. Leaving the beast crouching in his mind, he lurched to one of the puddles and bent over it. He did not drink. A face stared up at him. The hair was long and matted, and the nose and brow almost black, the skin flaked and peeling. It reminded him of someone. He racked his memory. Finally, it struck him. "Where have you been?" he cried. "Master Shu!" He reached out to embrace the old man. The animal, despair, took advantage of this moment of inattention. It leapt and sank its teeth. Must a journey that began so brightly come to such an end? Jin has lost hope. Will he survive without it? For the answer, turn to the next chapter. Chapter 27. Two prosperous merchants. Fortune changes for the better, or for the worse. This dream was different. It was not as marvelous as the others. It kept breaking into bits and disappearing. People he did not know floating in and out. He felt as if he had been wrapped up, unable to move. Sometimes his mouth was open and things put into it, which he chewed and swallowed instinctively. Most of the timeless time, he drifted through lightless corridors. As always in his dreams, he wore no wooden collar. That was good, otherwise disappointing. He had hoped for something brighter. He had hoped to meet voyaging moon, as he so often did. Eventually, he could see more clearly. Here were two gentlemen, both well-dressed. They could have been prosperous merchants. They looked vaguely familiar. One had a happy, lumpy face. The other was lean, with long, ropey hair. It took him a while to recognize them. "Mafu? Mosha?" Jin said, "In handsome new clothes. What a fine dream this is turning out to be." Excuse me. "Call me a dream, eh?" Mafu slapped his large and solid belly. "Here's reality, well stuffed. I got back better than I lost. You're awake, be sure of that." Mosha came to the bedside. "If you think you're dreaming, what do you say to this?" He held up something in front of Jin. "Go on, touch it. See it for yourself." It was the Kangu, shattered. "I cracked it open," Mosha said proudly. "Good thing no one saw me, or we'd all have been in trouble." Jen took the collar in his hands. He passed his fingers over the splintered wood and broken bolts. He looked up at Mafu and Mosha. "No dream," Jen murmured. "I'm free of it." For the first time since he had worn the collar, he wept with joy. "You'll tell us later how you got yourself into such a plight." Mafu gently put a hand on Jen's shoulder. "The main thing is that you're out. Give that monstrosity here. I'll get rid of it now." "I'll keep it," Jen said. "If I ever wondered if this is still a dream, all I need to do is look at it. And at the two of you, my dear friends, how did you find me, and where am I?" "Specifically," the mad robber said, "we found you in a mud puddle. Generally, you're in Nong Pe, at the best inn available, you'll be pleased to know. You've been sick a good while. We've had doctors coming and going, stuffing pills and potions down your gullet, and servants feeding you between times. You were far gone. We feared you mightn't come back." "We've been trying to catch up with you for months," added Mafu. "We lost track of you at the beginning of winter. Mosha picked up your trail again a few weeks ago." By the ear of continual attentiveness, exclaimed the mad robber. It never fails. Talk, rumors, gossip, some Greyville villagers in a backwater called Pengair remembered you well. Ah, if only we'd found you before this. We did the best we could, Mafu said. I and this skinny madman, he added with an affectionate grin, and Mosha got swept beyond the mouth of the Low, almost out to sea. We hung on for dear life to what was left of the boat. It took some doing to paddle back. We must have saved each other's life a half a dozen times. We made shore at last and started upriver on foot. We sheltered in a fisherman's hut. He told us about a young fellow. We guessed it was you, who might have headed for Chenye. No sign of you there, Mosha put in, but the ear of continual attentiveness heard of a flute girl who had been at the Golden Grasshopper long before. We talked to the proprietor, a disagreeable creature, and got nothing from him, Jed said bitterly. On the contrary, Mosha said, we got a great deal. On the feet of stealthy silence, I went back that night and robbed him. At last, a perfect client. Not one of the precepts of honorable robbery applied to him. I had no compunction whatever. In fact, I enjoyed it. Better yet, the villain's cash was the foundation of our fortune. Of course, if you look closely enough, most fortunes have robbery of one sort or another at the bottom. With Master Hong's money, we bought a carriage and a pair of horses, Mafu said. We thought that would be quicker than tramping through the countryside. We bought new clothes, too. No use rousing suspicion that we were vagrants. In fact, we looked so prosperous and substantial that I was able to do a little business here and there. For a while, we had a finger in the dumpling trade, with a handsome return on the investment. Tried to follow you from one place to another. We bought bolts of cloth, pots, pans, and such, and sold them at an excellent profit. Had we kept on, we'd have made our fortunes a couple times over. It's mostly thanks to this long-legged lunatic, Mafu continued. He turned out to be a better businessman than he ever was a robber. It's the eye of discerning perception, Mosha said, beaming proudly, and the nose of thoughtful inhalations. They serve me well in ferreting out lucrative enterprises. I'm thinking seriously of giving up robbing and becoming a merchant. In business, there are no precepts whatever to inconvenience you. You pair of rascals. Jen burst out laughing. To think I was ready to give up for drowned. I wish I'd done as well as the two of you. As for me, Jen said after telling what had befallen him, the gifts of Huan Ming are gone. Voyaging Moon may still have the flute. Whether she does or doesn't makes no difference. All I want is to find her. With the three of us together now, we can surely do that. Don't think we haven't tried, Mafu said. We searched for her as hard as we searched for you. She was here in Nong Pei until winter. We talked to the theater director. He couldn't help us. He had no idea where she went. Then we'll keep looking, Jen said. I'll need clothes to begin with. You have a carriage and horses. We can start off today. That won't be possible, Mafu said. Why not? Returned Jin. What's to stop us? We'll not give up searching, Mafu said, but it must be put off a while. Before that, you must go to Chiang'ai, as quickly as possible. What? Exclaimed Jin. No, I see no use. My plump friend is correct, put in Mosha. The heart of sentimental sympathy grieves for you. The voice of stern practicality tells me you must do as he says. Jed looked from Mosha to Mafu. I don't understand. Mafu's face was grave. We heard of this a short while ago. Your honorable father fell ill soon after you left the Celestial Palace. At the end of last week, the worthy man joined his honorable ancestors. My father? Dead? Jin gave an anguished cry. And I not with him. No, not true. Alas, it is, Mafu said quietly. You are no longer young Lord Prince. You are king of Tiang. From wretched prisoner to king of Tiang. What will Jin do in these new circumstances? What of his beloved voyaging moon? This and more is told in the following chapter. Yeah, we only have 3 chapters left. Only 3. And we will be moving on to something else. Something I've been thinking about for a while, but I wasn't sure if I should start it. But I'm still going to muddle over it before I announce it. But I hope you're enjoying these stories. I hope you enjoy your time with me. As I always say, you never have to watch these videos when they go live. They are here for your entertainment purposes. Now, I shall bid you a good afternoon, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.